will come from Steve Gelbs from SNY.
Hey, Trevor, how are you? Just, curious right off the bat why you decided to go with the Mets.
Hey, Steve, nice to meet you. Mets, to be honest, one of the biggest thing is just kind of the buzz around Steve and the purchase of the team and the excitement to of all the changes happening. It's my immediate reaction was wanting to be a part of something like that. I would be lying to you if I said that Jeremy Hefner being the pitching coach didn't factor in as well. Hef's a really good friend of mine. I think we grew a lot together, him as a coach and myself as a player over the 2 years coming off Tommy John. So I attribute a lot of the kind of bouncing stuff off him and getting really good feedback of how I wanted to approach hitters and preparing to go through a lineup or get ready for whenever my spot's going to come up. A lot of what I've learned was really just having really candid conversations with him. So that was a big part of it too. But and then third, and I think the biggest thing is probably just how passionate the fans are. I feed off that stuff. I love playing baseball mostly because of the emotional connection that fans get with the players and with their team and how exciting that is. So there's just not, I don't think there is a better place than New York to get that connection. So those three things I think just made it a no-brainer.
You mentioned that relationship with Jeremy Hefner, and I know that over the last few years you've changed your pitch mix a little bit and really narrowed it down to a few really effective pitches. When you look at his contributions to your growth, is that the biggest one, do you think, or is it more the talking through things like you talked about, talking through approaching hitters and kind of evolving in that way?
Yeah, so it's a combination of both. But it was a lot of like, hey, this isn't working. Why do you think that is, right? And he'd give me a little bit of his feedback, and our pitching coach Wes Johnson was also in those conversations, and I would kind of bounce stuff off of Jeremy, and then we would then take it and be like, Wes, what do you think about this? And there was a lot of that happening, and there was a lot, and I think a lot of other guys in our pen also kind of got that relationship going, and I think that was a huge reason why so many guys were making really good adjustments through the season, and we kind of developed into a really good core that had a lot of success really consistently, which is really important for a bullpen. It's actually funny. There's a very specific example, which I believe that you talked last night with Dominic about, and which is hilarious because it was that curveball that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for just getting rid of it. And it's just weird and ironic that it was against the Mets, but that was like the third time in a matter of a week where the curveball just for whatever reason didn't get to where I wanted to go and was kind of morphing into this new slider that I tried. So we basically just said, hey, let's just make the slider the go-to after that day. I remember having the conversation the next day, like, should we just really lean into because I didn't have the feel for the slider yet. I was like, should we just lean into it and just like growing pains and like get this thing ready? And he's like, you're the pitcher, man. And we kind of just like looked at each other like this, and now here we are a year and a half later, and that was a huge reason why that happened. So but yeah, it was definitely that dynamic.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Trevor.
You're welcome.
Your next question comes from Tony DeComo from MLB.com.
Hey, Trevor. Just one more on Hefner. What sorts of conversations have you maybe had with him, either even before you signed or since you've signed the past couple of days, just regarding, being reunited now?
Yeah, it was really just for whatever reason, just kind of like excited to be working together again. Nothing really specifics, to be honest. I think that we were both a little bit in like, let's not jinx this type situation until it was finalized, obviously. So we're gonna probably have a more in-depth conversation with how we're gonna get ready for the season and stuff here coming up soon. But a lot of it was just like, I was like, hey man, where am I going to live? And he's just like getting that information because he played for the team. He was a player and now he's a coach. So he's got a lot of experience with the Mets org and kind of how it all works. And it's a lot different than Minnesota. So it was mostly me just picking his brain there. But I think that getting really into the pitching side and just kind of, how he's approached, how he's kind of like, because it's been a year since we've been together, how he's kind of approached working with the guys and how the whole how the dynamic is out there and what other guys are working on, what the kind of ethos is. I think those are all things that I would like to get a little bit of an idea for going into spring training and then help in any way that I can, just kind of fitting in, being a piece of that puzzle.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Your next question is from Justin Toscano from the Bergen Record.
Hey, Trevor, welcome. Good to see you. You mentioned the buzz surrounding Steve Cohen's purchase of the team. What were some of the specific things that you had heard about Steve Cohen, or maybe some of the changes coming to the organization?
Yeah, first of all, if you guys hear some sounds behind me, I apologize for that. We have some work in the house. Great timing for it, but that is just how life works sometimes. But in terms of Steve, first of all, I'm a big accessibility guy. I like to be, available to talk to fans, and like I Twitch stream and I do a lot of things like that. And that's my favorite part of doing this. And I kind of saw that from him. Something that I couldn't name another owner that is as big of a fan as the team that he's going to own and has a measure of accessibility and kind of wit to him. And that was kind of like I don't know, there was a connection immediately. But I saw a lot of the stuff on socials with the, how he's been a fan for 50 years now or plus. And it's something that it's hard to describe. It's something that is just kind of new. Like it's kind of unprecedented in Major League Baseball. It's just something that's exciting and you want to match your owner's excitement. And that is something that I think that is something that I just wanted to be a part of. So just kind of seeing how excited he was and then how excited the fans were to have him, locked me in. It just locked me in.
And kind of on that answer, baseball seems to be a game that can cause a lot of burnout with the daily grind during a season, the Twitch streams, the other stuff that you like to do. Does that help you kind of relax, away from the field and avoid some of that burnout?
Yeah, I think that it's a little bit of a two-sided coin. It can exacerbate some of that stuff if you are just kind of like not doing well, not feeling good, and then you're just putting yourself in front of a bunch of people that are just going to tell you and remind you all the time. But I think I've been doing it long enough. It's funny. My wife made a comment last night. She's like, did you notice that since you've been doing those things and like kind of being an internet presence that kind of the pitching has improved along with it? And I said, yeah, I think I feed off that energy. I think I like just being it kind of provides a little more accountability. Like I have to be more accountable when I'm in front of people all the time. And yeah, it has become a little bit of a distressor. I think just playing games and hanging out with my friends online has been a big reason for that. And a lot of people do that and they don't stream it, but for whatever reason, entertaining and like having a project going that I can take my mind off the game or being at the field has been a big part of that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Your next question comes from Tim Healy from Newsday.
Hi, Trevor. When the Mets announced your signing, they noted that you sometimes live DJ under several monikers. How did you get into that, and what are the names that you perform under?
So I haven't DJ'd since I got into Twitch. The whole thing with me is I find a hobby, and I just fall down that hole. So that was my early 20s phase until I turned about 26, and then I got into the live streaming thing. And that is been all consuming, because it's kind of just spread all kinds of ways outside of just being live all the time. But for DJing, I went under the name DJ Hey Beef when I was 19. It's an inside joke that if I explained it still wouldn't make any sense. And it was like I'm never gonna DJ anything, so let's just make it this. It'll be funny. And then I got some opportunities to do it, and so we quickly changed that to Mazer, just to play off my last name with the word laser. and it's just completely cheesy and pretty cringy. And so I changed that really quickly, and then we merged the brands. It's just Trevor May now. But I do have turntables. I do still dabble in my young age of 31 at playing electronic music, and kind of wish that I was younger and I could play around the city. Like, that'd be a lot of fun. Still something I enjoy. I just like entertaining people. It's playing music and having them react to it. It's the same thing for baseball. I just love, I love having that kind of emotional connection to people.
And unrelatedly, your fastball velocity has risen pretty steadily in the last couple of years. Do you feel like there's more where that came from, more in the tank, or how does your body feel when you keep throwing harder?
It's honestly it's been feeling better consistently. I am expending more energy on a nightly basis, but in terms of soreness and little naggy, tightness here and there, that kind of has just kind of gone to the wayside, and I feel more consistently good. And that has a lot to do with it's the reason the velo has increased so much is because of just really cleaning up body patterns, really optimizing how my body moves. And I think there's continued room for improvement. I think that I made a huge jump because of some things that were really glaring, and those have improved immensely, but there's still room there. And honestly, like I said, I run on adrenaline, run on energy from fans. So you add some of those in the stands, there could be even a little bit more in there. And it is kind of funny thinking about it, that my velocity increased like it did with no fans. So knowing how I am and how I operate. So, yeah, it's exciting to see what some fans could do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your next question comes from Tim Britton from The Athletic.
Hey, Trevor, congratulations. We've talked a couple times about Steve Cohen. I was wondering, we don't hear the ownership situation mentioned a lot when free agents talk about why they signed with the team. I'm wondering, did you expect that to play a role, conceptually when you thought about free agency, or was this kind of a unique circumstance with a new owner coming in and creating the kind of buzz that Steve has?
At first, not really. When my agency and I kind of went over how we, what factors we're going to factor in, it didn't really come up because in general, a lot of ownership groups are a little bit hands off, and it's a lot more from an organizational standpoint. The people that you're excited to work with because you work with them more. But this was a little bit, like I said, it was a little unprecedented, just kind of the timing, and the role and how active and how open and candid for what he wants to do and how he wants to approach this thing was something I hadn't seen before. So it quickly became a factor, and it's almost like there's this wave of excitement in which he's leading, and that just personality wise and kind of what I feel like I bring to the table, not only on the field but even off and kind of the surrounding things that players have to do to have fans engaged and excited about their team. Those that lined up really well with me, and those are things I'm passionate about. I love talking to fans, and I love hyping people up, and I'm really active on the social media and the internet, as we've established, and I think that it's a good fit, and I think a lot of people are excited, and I just want to be part of that excitement.
And then not a lot of free agents have signed at this point in the calendar. How did the timing of this coming together align with your expectations? And how did you feel about being one of the first guys, especially one of the first relievers, to sign this winter?
Yeah, to be honest, it took me by surprise. A lot of it happened before Thanksgiving. And I was about ready just to go. We had done a long quarantine before we saw some of my wife's family. We all kind of did the 14 days of seeing nobody. So I was really focused on that, and a lot of conversations had just kind of been, feeling it out. There's been a lot of that, and that we expected that, and we expected it to possibly go a little bit longer just because of the nature of the last season, the uncertainty surrounding the 2021 season. There's just a lot going on, and we expected a lot of toes to be dipping in the water, but no one really to jump in, and that's why we were very pleasantly surprised that the Mets kind of went waist deep faster than a lot of other teams. And it happened very, very fast, but it put a huge smile on my face. We were really excited, and I feel like we were really prepared for when that day came. I just don't think like you can ever guess when it's going to happen, because it could be over a 3-month period. Like who knows? And it does feel good to kind of break the ice a little bit, and we'll see what happens after this with our team and with where other guys go, and hopefully it gets the ball moving a little bit more in all kinds of directions, and yeah, that's. But yeah, it was a weird situation. I just don't think there's any way to get used to it. I just think that you're going to be, it's going to happen. You're not going to expect every time you go through this situation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Your next question comes from Ed Coleman from Mets Radio and WFAN.
Hey, Trevor. Welcome to New York.
Thank you.
Couple of questions for you. Number one, I know it's early, but did you have any conversations with Sandy? You've done middle and set up and close. You have any conversations with Sandy about where you might land?
A little bit. I think that it was more of the answer I expected. It was kind of like, there's a lot to still happen this off season, but throwing meaningful outs and wherever those high leverage situations are, my name is going to be, in that conversation to be called on a day-to-day basis. And to be honest, that's with the Twins, that's very much how we ran our bullpen. We had a closer, but there was a lot of guys throwing from the 5th to the 9th every day. And I believe I pitched in every single inning in a game except for the first last year. So you're not going to surprise me. And I take pride in my ability to be ready from the first pitch of a game to the end, whenever those guys need to be stranded or those big outs need to be gotten. And in the playoffs, we saw it with the Rays last year. That's the wave right now. That's what everyone's doing, and those are the types of guys. The deeper your bullpen tends to be, your team tends to be better. And so I'm going to be ready for whenever my name's called. I will. Obviously, so much of that stuff shakes out in spring training, and so that's how I'm approaching it.
And also, Jeremy underwent not one but 2 Tommy John surgeries. I'm just wondering whether that helped in the bonding. You coming back from Tommy John and going through the whole process like that.
Absolutely, I came back. My velocity wasn't where I wanted it to be, and he just can't preach patience with me. And he's just like, if you feel good, you just got to be patient with it. So. We bonded a lot over that because I came back. I hadn't actually, he took the job in 7 or 18. No, 18 was his first year. So, it was, we're kind of both I'm coming back. We hadn't been together yet. And we kind of made an immediate connection with that. Just like he went through what I went through. And then as my arm started to come back and bounce back and my body started to get back in the swing of things, we were able to shift more into approach and things of that nature.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from Dan Martin from The Post.
Hey, Trevor, a couple of things for you. I was curious if you were seriously engaged, I guess, with other teams before going with the Mets, and also just how familiar are you with the other guys in the bullpen, and what do you make of what the bullpen looks like so far, understanding that there other moves could be made?
Yeah, so I guess the term serious is relative. There was a lot of teams kind of in the same area. We had conversations with honestly a lot more teams than I thought we would, like half the league, and that was really, really like exciting and made me feel like guys want you, but honestly, the Mets came in and it became, there was a lot of people kind of together, and then immediately the gap was huge. And there's just a lot of teams not really ready to move. So I would say in the term serious, I think the Mets were the most serious really quickly. And then it was just kind of done when there was no way to really go nowhere to go from there. So in terms of the bullpen and the guys out there already, I actually I know a couple guys personally, Chase and Shreve, actually, his brother, I was in his wedding and I played with Colby. for a few years in the Phillies organization. We became really good friends. Excuse me one moment. Sorry about that. I played against Dellin. He has been prior to his surgery, he was one of the best guys in the league. Familia, obviously, played against him when he was with the A's, and have watched his work with the Mets. Sugar, I grew up a Mariners fan, so I kind of like keep tabs on them just because it was part of my my DNA, and so I knew about him over there and with the trade and everything. So I'm very familiar with how a lot of these guys pitch. They were all you name all these guys. Even Brad Brock with the Orioles, we matched up with them a ton when I first moved to the bullpen. When they had Britton and him and Michael Givens. So I'm constantly looking at guys and kind of like seeing how I match up. So there's a lot of talent, a lot of guys who throw hard, a lot of guys who get swings and misses, and a lot of guys who were kind of the top of the league at some point. And that's really exciting. I think it's just kind of getting everyone to a place where they're feeling really good, and they're locked into what their job is on a given day, and there's just and you kind of just let your talent take over, and you just kind of hand the ball to each other. And those are those really good bullpens that figure out like this is my niche, and this is what I need to do to give it to that guy, and so on and so forth. That's when you start stringing those 20, 30, 40 games together where you're just untouchable. And the talent's obviously there. I don't think anyone can refute that. I think it's just doing the job and getting it done. So I'm excited. And honestly, I was the biggest guy in the bullpen with the Twins last year. I'm like the sixth biggest guy in this bullpen. So if anything, if we need to beat someone in 5-on-5 basketball, I think we got that on lock.
Thanks.
Yep.
Your next question comes from Mark Ernay from 1010 Wins.
Hey, Trevor, welcome to New York. I'm watching your setup there, your background and everything.
Yeah.
Following you on social media, your Twitch and the podcast. You seem like a natural fit for New York City. So how amped are you to be coming to town?
Extremely amped. Yesterday I was in the city getting my physical done and driving around, and my driver mentioned a local sandwich shop close to the stadium, and I'm like, let's just stop. We were on our way to the airport. We stopped, we grabbed a sandwich. I got to meet those guys, and I just had a huge smile on my face for like hours. I was just like, this is what I'm meant to. This is where I'm meant to be, and I was super excited about it, and just the feel and the atmosphere is just like you said. I think it's something that I've kind of been developing myself that, and this is just kind of fits right into that. I think that journey.
I'm compelled.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm compelled to ask your cat's name.
My cat's name is Elsie. This is one, actually, we got a new cat, so we have two as well. Donnie is our other cat. And a lot of people might be wondering about the fat head. So we obviously with COVID season, a lot of teams put fat heads or cutouts of the people in their stands. We had our family section, so I had my wife and my cat up there. If we have to do that again this year, I got to add another one. So and he's got a great face for a cutout too. But she's actually laying up there behind it. You can barely see her ears are popping up, but she actually won't sleep on her cat tree unless her fat head's up there. So this is a really weird, I don't know. This is a really weird situation I created, but now I can't move it. So it's going to be there forever. But yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Your next question comes from Bradford Davis from the Daily News.
Hey, Trevor, nice to meet you. I guess my first question is where did you go for your sandwich?
Oh gosh. I gotta look it up again. I've been trying really hard to remember the name. It's long. It's a long Italian name. Gosh. I'll have to look it up. I'm sorry.
Do you remember what kind of sandwich it was?
Yeah, it's called the Michelangelo, and it was a chicken cutlet sandwich with avocado, bacon, and spicy aioli, and it was incredible. I saw it actually on the Instagram on our way there, and I was like, I'm getting that. I'm going to throw pickles on it next time. I think that's just like, that's the one thing that's missing for me. It doesn't naturally go on the sandwich, but I think that I'll get some brownie points for like customizing it and making it mine, you know?
And the question I prepared, obviously everyone lost the usual fan connection once everything shut down this year. And I'm curious, how did that affect you as someone who really enjoys that? And how did your approach with gaming and social media and all the live streams sort of bridge that gap that, might have, 10 years ago just wouldn't be there?
Yeah. Honestly, having the fans not kind of with us through the season was tough. And it was, especially with kind of how our team was too. We had a lot of momentum from the year before. We had a great season, broke a bunch of Twins records, and we were really excited going into the next year because we had something to prove. We got swept in the playoffs by the same team that constantly sweeps in the playoffs. You guys know all about them. And we had a chip on our shoulder. So it really sucked. It wasn't ideal. And so we had to find ways to make those connections. Fortunately, I have built a brand on the internet with gaming, and I was really fortunate to work with Sony to get like the MLB Players League. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it was 30 teams with a player from each team. I think McNeil played for the Mets, and that was so much fun. And so we tried to do a bunch of like out of the box stuff to keep people engaged and like give access to players. That was kind of unprecedented, and that was a great time. But yeah, I turned it up to 10, man. I was just like, let's do stuff digitally. Everyone's doing stuff digitally. You guys are all working digitally. Everyone's doing everything. So you guys are here. You're on the internet. So let's give you some stuff you've never seen before, and let's try some new stuff. So if anything, it just kind of opened those doors. I think that's moving forward. I think that there's more and more teams around the league. The MLB itself is making more of a digital outreach, and traditionally really slow in terms of making those decisions. So I think there's a lot of positives that I think are going to stick moving forward as we get through this pandemic.
Cool. And last question, have you spoken to any of your new teammates about hopping on the next stream?
Not yet, but we've got a lot of social media engagement from Stro and from Pete. So, and to be honest, the Players League thing was that actually stemmed. I remember Pete made a tweet at the very beginning of the quarantine, and I DM'd him, was like, hey, just relax. I'm working on it. He's just like, I'll play anyone in the show. I'm like, hey, we're going to get a league. Just like, cause we might be able to get, a little bit of pay out of it. But I was kind of waiting for it to kind of like be official. I was really trying to make sure things were official before I got like going on the internet. So it's only been like 12 hours now. So I'm sure that in the coming days, those conversations will start happening. But yeah, hopefully we can find some guys in the clubhouse that are into it or into doing something. They have a hobby. They want to make more of an engaging thing. And I feel like I can help with that.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Next question comes from Ron Blum from the Associated Press.
Hey, Trevor, congratulations. Either before or after the recruiting process, since you agreed, have you ever heard from Steve directly?
I have not spoken to Steve directly, no.
Okay. And before he bought the team, did you ever have any thoughts about pitching in New York, and what intrigued you about that?
Yeah. It's always been on the radar. I think that one thing I loved every moment I was in Minnesota, but it is a smaller market. There's just only so much you can really do and achieve to kind of like think outside the box. Like I said, for whatever reason, my passion is thinking of creative ways to bring people into the game and to engage with fans. And so New York is just like, if that's something that you're interested in doing and you like to collaborate with people and do cool stuff and get people excited about your team. I mean, there's just no better place than New York. So I've always known that was if that were an option, that it would be something that'd be really exciting for me. So when those calls started, and it started from the first day, the Mets were on the day one. They were one of those first calls. When that happened, it was exciting, and they immediately were we're at that up towards the top of that list through the whole process. So when that happened, it was a little bit of a realization of something that I thought about before.
You think you're going to look at places in the city or out in the burbs?
I don't know. In terms of living, sleep's really important for me. And I know that, that's not necessarily the most easy thing to come by in the city sometimes. So, I'm leaning more towards burbs. I'm more of a burb guy. I live a little bit outside of Seattle too. So I never wanted to live near downtown. So, that's kind of my speed. But again, like where those options are or whatever they are, I think we're going to look at a ton of options and see what's up. But I'm hoping. I haven't had this conversation with the Mets yet, but I'm hoping there's somewhere to take a nap during the year. If I learned one thing from Nelly Cruz, it is if you get a 30-minute nap in, things go a lot better for you through the day. So, but that's a little sidebar. So,
Thank you.
Yep.
Your next question comes from Mark Roseman from Sports Talk New York.
Hey, Trevor, welcome to New York. So social media is somewhat of a double-edged sword. I know you mentioned Minnesota, a smaller market. How are you going to handle those days where maybe you blow a game and social media is not that kind? And, just an indication of what New York social media is like. Wouldn't be surprised if Elsie the cat is trending by this afternoon.
Yeah, I honestly, you know what? I've seen my fair share. Like I said, that homer I gave up to Dominique was probably one of the tougher days. But like I said, it's like a much smaller market. And so I just in my mind, the way I'm preparing is thinking any sort of negative thing I've seen on social media over the years, I should probably just immediately like ×5 it in my head for the number of things you're gonna get. And it's just the way it goes. I mean, I don't know if you've spent any time in a Twitch stream, but it's just that stuff, but live. It's like those tweets, but like people are typing it in real time, and it could fill up, and you got to deal with those days. So I've had a lot of experience. I think I have more experience than a lot of people in dealing with, hating or just generally trolling or just trying to get a rise out of you. But there's something on Twitter that I love called the mute button. And it is, I've put it to fairly good use, and I have some pretty strict rules on it. And sometimes I can determine really quickly whether or not someone's going to be part of my life or not. And they're gone, but they don't know it. And they're yelling in the void at this point, there's a little satisfaction in that. So I plan on using that, but there's going to be really tough days. I know that. I'm just preparing myself mentally ready to go that it just really in the scope of things doesn't matter doesn't matter what John says and wherever, like it just doesn't. And you got to be able to go out and do your job. And if you have a good plan and you've gone through what happened and you figured out what's actionable, what you can do to improve, or how you can approach something better in the future, that's what you need to take. That's the value. And as long as you get that out of the situation and you're able to move forward and be ready to pitch the next day, then you're doing everything you can. And that's going to be hard to remember sometimes. I understand that. Are there going to be days where I give up runs? Probably. And that's just, I've been around long enough to know that sometimes there's nothing you can do. So, but I'm going to learn a lot, I'm sure.
And lastly, your Met pedigree with your pitching coaches. I believe you broke in under Neil Allen and then Hef. Neil Allen was one of those guys that, always preached about never getting too high, never getting too low, especially as a reliever. And he also had, similar to you, a bigger than life personality. What are some of the things you took from Neil?
Oh, I love Neil Allen. He was one of my favorite people that I met playing this game. But yeah, that was his big thing. His big thing was just being hyper consistent with your in your mentally, because that's something that you have control over, and really trying to be hyper consistent in the things that you can control. That was a big thing that I got from him. That, and just never be late is big. I'll never forget the one time I was late for a bullpen coming back from an injury, and I've never been chewed out like that in my life. And he's a really easygoing guy. He never got angry, and he had just his one thing, being late. So that's something that stuck with me too. So now I'm big on like being on time. I might have been a little more lax with it before. After that day, never again. So, but yeah, Neil was he's a great role model for how to handle yourself with the team, with your teammates, and with the locker room. And he was definitely a player's guy, always approachable, and always always had a smile, and always drinking a Coca-Cola. That was his big thing too. For whatever reason, the guy drank like 20 Cokes a day, which is astronomical. But he's he's one of the best, and I'll definitely take the things he taught me through the rest of my career.
Thanks a lot. Best of luck.
Yep. Thank you.
Trevor, your last question comes from Mark Healy from the Rockland Wave.
Hey, Trevor. This is Mark Healy from the Wave in Rockaway, and I want to put a plug in for Rockaway, by the way, as a place that you'll get some sleep. You're really a guy who just gets up there and throws it. You really rely on hard stuff, and looking at your career, you're a guy that likes to get the ball and throw it. How do you fold in analytics, especially with your experience with Hefner as your pitching coach? How does a guy like you, who throws so hard and relies on really heavy stuff, how do you go about looking on the analytical side of things and incorporating that into your approach every day?
That's a great question. Actually, there was a couple of things that happened in the last 2 years that kind of really honed me in. The way that I learned when I was coming up through the minors that breaking kind of the idea, breaking the process of pitching down into like actionable steps in my mind was a way for me to analyze what's happening in real time and make adjustments during the game. Like, I'm very like list oriented. I'm a list guy. And so I always thought there's 3 major factors. There's how good is your game plan, your analysis going into an at bat or into an outing. How well are you focusing? How are you handling your external factors with the crowd and whatever? And then how well are you physically executing? Those are like the 3. Like there's 2 mental, 1 physical. And like that, how good are you feeling? How good is your work? How much are you doing in the bullpen? So with Hef, we figured out that I locked in the focus thing. I worked so hard on it, meditation, all that kind of stuff, visualization. The execution was coming along. My arm was bouncing back. My velo was going up, and I had good command. So I was like, okay, those things are locked in. What's the last piece that's missing? The kind of last piece a lot of big leaguers learn, and that's game plan and analysis. Why am I throwing when I'm throwing when? Like, what is my ethos there? And that was just a little bit like, at the moment. So right. I read an article, I think about Dallas Keuchel, and he was talking about how he realized early that his stuff, he didn't throw really hard, and he needed to have really good command, and he had to have a really, really good plan, or he wasn't going to be successful. And when he locked that in, he had his Cy Young year, and I was like, but what if I had the same mindset there, but through 97? What if I commanded really well and approached it the same way and had a really good plan, but I also had a really, really good stuff? I could be elite. So that's kind of how we developed my pregame plan. And a lot of it has to do with my strengths are thrown up in the zone. My strengths are depth on breaking balls as opposed to like horizontal movement. So how do I use those weapons to their maximum ability with tunneling and all that kind of stuff to fool guys and get swings and misses? Because that's what I'm called on to do. So my job is to get swings and misses. How do I get those? And that's how I break down my series by series breakdowns of the hitters. For example, this last year, I faced the 2, 3, 4 hitter in every lineup every day. Like that was my job. I was like, we faced the Indians. I'm like, I had to get Lindor, Ramirez, and Santana out every single game. I faced Lindor every game. And so I had to know on a day-to-day basis, because he's a good hitter and he makes adjustments, what he's trying to do. And I've been fortunate to have a pretty good success there with him. And it all lays down to, how do I use my fastballs up? When do I use them? Can I get swings and misses on fastballs up, or is it a good way to get strikeouts? Does this guy chase breaking balls below the zone or off the plate? Because how mine moves below the zone is always better than off the plate. If they're not a big breaking ball below the plate guy, how about changeups? There's a lot of guys that are right on right for whatever reason. They don't see any changeups and they're just not good with them. And I have a good changeup, and I've always been confident in it. It's the first off-speed pitch I ever learned in my life. And so then I'll start to factor that and fold that in. And I kind of give myself buzzwords where I have 2 or 3 steps facing every hitter, 2 or 3 weapons that I know where I can go with what. And that has carried me, that has done me pretty well up to this point. And now it's just kind of expanding on those things, especially as the hitters get better or the lineups get a little bit more deep. Like for example, the White Sox were this last year, that you had to kind of, instead of being like those 2, 3, 4 guys, we don't want those guys to be, they had about 6 guys that you couldn't let beat you, and that you had to attack a little bit more. So those are all adjustments. Like that was something we honed in on. That was something that helped me develop and will continue to help me develop. And that's what's super exciting for me, because I feel like we're just going to pick up where we left off, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Trevor, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.